Hello class, and welcome to our first ever flipped class video. In this video on lesson 1.1, I'm going to walk you through how to watch the videos and also how to record them. So take a look here. This is the opening screen that you will see on most of our videos. At the top you'll notice it has the title, Notes 1.1, Expressions in Order of Operations. After that it has which standards are being covered, California Standards AF 1.2 and AF 1.4. We're going to go ahead and pause there and copy that part down before we get started on the lesson itself. Okay, now take a look at your paper and I want you to go ahead and set yours up the same way mine is. As you'll notice, we have your name at the top with your period, class period and date. Also, at the top, you need to write your title. Now, notice the title is underneath the name, period, and date. It is important that you're setting this up correctly. The name, period, and date go in the top corner, title underneath. Next, you'll notice I have a column for questions. This is on the edge of your paper, and you can use a ruler and just make a line dividing it. And you're going to use this column. If you have any questions throughout the notes, you can jot them down here. Okay. Next, we're going to go ahead and go back to our notes once you've copied that down. So if you need to, pause the video, make sure you've got everything written down, and when you're ready, rejoin us with the notes. Okay, the next thing you're going to see is you'll see any vocabulary words that we do have. As you can see on this page, we do have 6 vocabulary words, all written in bold, with their definitions. So the next thing you're going to do is write down those words with their definitions on your notes, just like I have here. So go ahead, pause the video, and copy these down now. The next thing you'll see on your notes are teacher examples. After teacher example, it says pencils down. What that means is you're going to listen to the example, but you do not need to write it in your notes. All you need to do is listen as I go through the example. So in this case, I'll go ahead and start off reading the directions, write the product as a power, and describe it in words. Problem A, 5 times 5. When I write it as a power, I'm going to use my exponent. Since there's 2 5s, it's 5 to the second power. And writing out in the words, I write just that. 5 to the second power, which also can be read as 5 squared. Next problem, we have 8 times 8 times 8. We have 3 8s, making it 8 to the third power, or 8 cubed. Last one, x times x times x times x, is x to the 4th power because there's 4 x's. And there's no other way we say that, just x to the 4th. Here we have another teacher example. So again, you are not going to write this down. However, you do want to make sure you're listening and paying attention so you're ready when it becomes your turn to practice. Also, remember at any point you can pause and rewind the video if you need me to repeat. So, on this teacher example 2, now we're doing the opposite and we're actually finding the value of a power. So we have 3 to the 4th power, which we know that means we're using the number 3 4 times. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. When I multiply that together, the easiest thing for me to do is combine the 3's by 2's. So 3 times 3 is 9, and here 3 times 3 is 9. Then I can multiply the 9's together, resulting in 81. Okay, and remember, order doesn't matter, multiplication, I can do that any which way that I want. Okay, now take a look at this next page. It does say student practice pencils up. What that means is right now you're going to write this down in your notes. You're going to solve these you're going to pause the video and solve the problems. When you finish solving the problems, you can go ahead and press play and you will see the answers. Okay, by now you should have finished copying the problems down and solving them. So now I'll go ahead and show the answers for you. And what you want to do is you want to be able to check your answers and make sure that they are the same. Remember, if you do have any questions, you do want to write them down on the questions column on your notes. So if we take a look at your notes, they should be looking like mine, which are right here. So if you take a look at the notes, I've written down examples 1 and 2 and the 6 problems, and then of course you would have solved them. Notice we still have the question column on the side, but you can put any questions you have in. Okay, moving back to our lesson, we're going to be looking next at PEMDAS, order of operations. So what you're going to need to do now is you'll need to copy down any key information, which of course the steps of order of operations would definitely be key. All 4 steps need to be written down on your notes. Notice it says watch out. For that part you wouldn't need to write that down unless you want a little reminder for you. Remember, your notes are there to help you, so if they're not useful, they're really a waste of time. So go ahead now and copy the 4 steps down into your notes. Okay, so now your notes should be looking again like these, with the order of operations written down, each step written down in your notes. Again, anything extra you want to write, you always can. You simply cannot write anything less. We now have another teacher example, which of course means pencils down. You are not going to be doing anything here. I just want you following along with the problems. So we'll take a look at order of operations. Remember, the first step is parentheses or grouping symbols. Next we have exponents, then multiplication and division. Remember, they are on the same level. It's whichever one comes first. And we finish off with addition and subtraction. Again, you work from left to right, whichever one comes first. So we take a look at problem A here, and we're going to start by doing that division. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Next, we see our choices are subtraction or multiplication. And of course, we're going to multiply next. 3 times 2. And finally, we can subtract. Down here, you'll notice I have 2 sets of parentheses. So I want to start inside the brackets, which again are a type of parenthesis. I start inside the brackets, and I see there's another set of parentheses inside, so I start there with that multiplication. Now, staying within the parentheses or brackets, I can do this division right here. And finally, I move outside the parentheses and do the last set of division. So those are the steps you want to follow. Make sure you're doing those. Again, if you need to rewind the video, you may do so. Okay, final one here. This is this giant bar. We call it a fraction bar. We also call it a division bar. And that means it's a grouping symbol. So it means you do everything in the numerator first and everything in the denominator. And finally, you can divide your 2 solutions. So we multiply 6 times 10. We add 7 plus 5. And lastly, we can use that fraction bar to divide 60 by 12. Okay, next we have another student practice. So again, it says pencils up because that means you need to write down these 6 problems. Please go ahead, copy them down, pause your video, solve them, and when you're ready, you can go ahead and press play again to see the answers. Go ahead and pause your video now. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at the answers. I'll go ahead and bring up the steps with the answers. And again, you're going to want to pause your video and while you take a look at those answers so that you have time to see all of those, making sure that you followed all the correct steps. Okay, final teacher example here, teacher example 4. We've got algebraic expressions. So notice it says to evaluate the expression when x equals 6 and y equals 3. This is a teacher example, which means you're not going to write this down, simply follow along. What I need to do first, I need to replace all the variables with values. So when I see an x here, I need to make that a 6. When I see an x down here, again, it's a 6, but I also need to make the y a 3. Then I can continue with my steps, doing multiplication first, then subtraction. Here, I can do both the multiplication problems and then addition. So the only difference here from the problems we did in the past is that you are going to follow those steps of first turning the variable into a number, then solving. Okay, class, here we have our final example for you to practice on your own. So please go ahead and do these 4 problems, pause the video, and solve them. When you're ready, go ahead and press play. Welcome back. Hopefully you solved these problems correctly. Let's go ahead and reveal the steps with the answers. Notice I plugged in my number for the variable of a and solved. On 14, I had to plug in my numbers for both B and A. 15, I had B, A, and then I also had the number 6 already. Plugging those in, following order of operations. Remember, you are always using order of operations. Finally, 16, a little trickier. Again, we've got that fraction bar, which, as we know, means division after we have finished solving the top and the bottom, known as the numerator and the denominator. Go ahead, plug in your numbers, multiply and subtract, and finally divide. The very last part of your notes will be a quiz. So you'll notice on my notes here, I have the quiz posted. You'll be finding this quiz on Schoology. When you look there, you'll see the posted quiz. You're going to do all your work in your notes and put your final answers. Make sure you post them to Schoology. That's where you'll get your grade. If you get all 3 quiz questions right, you'll be able to move on to the activity. If you get 1 or 2 of them right, you need a little review. If you don't get any of them right or you don't do the quizzes, you will need to re-watch the video, retake notes, resolve all the problems before you'll be able to move on. Okay, hope you did a great job. Please raise your hand when you're finished.